So, in a few hours, the first Virgo new moon of the summer will be exact. We are in the dark of the moon right now. The second Virgo new moon will happen Sunday, September 21st at 29 degrees of Virgo. This first Virgo new moon is at 0 degrees of Virgo. And so, for this lunation, we have two bookends at the very first or zero ingress of Virgo, and then another new moon at the very last degree of Virgo. So this month gives us an opportunity to reflect deeply on the themes of Virgo in our lives. One way to do that is to look at the house that Virgo governs in your natal chart. We all have Virgo in our chart. We all have one house that is governed by each of the zodiac signs. But you only really know that if you know the time you were born. You need to know your rising sign to know which houses are governed by which signs. If you don't know the time of your birth and you don't know your rising sign, you can still see which planets were in Virgo at the time of your birth, meaning that those planets carry the influence and the signature of Virgo. So I want to talk tonight just a little bit about the energy of Virgo as I've come to understand it. Um, there's a kitten under my desk making a lot of noise. He may want to come up here and say hi. So the energy of Virgo, when we think of the time of year that this energy, this archetype governs, it's the harvest season. So the first harvest has already happened. The second harvest is happening at the autumnal equinox, which is the cusp, the end of Virgo season. And then the last harvest will happen at Samhain. So Virgo is the time of a lot of work. When we're harvesting, we are, in an agrarian culture, there are two times of year that there's a lot of heavy labor. The time when we break ground to plant and the harvest time. In between, it's daily small tasks of weeding and pruning and staking and um, little bits of work here and there that is much more leisurely. But when we're putting the seeds in the ground and when we're taking the harvest from the ground, that is heavy work. And it's not just physical labor, which is really practical and embodied and sensual and requires endurance and skill, mastery of skill. It's also intellectual labor. We're thinking about the smartest and best way to fulfill the harvest, and then the smartest and best way to store the harvest so that it lasts the longest to get us through the season of scarcity, the winter season. So we're preserving the harvest by fermenting, by salting, by drying, by grinding, by there's all the burying sometimes. There are all these different ways that we preserve that which we've harvested. And so there's a real intellectual and physical practical mastery that goes into this season of the year. And that is what Virgo offers us. This self-contained, wise, practical mastery. We know what is ours to do. We know how to do it well, both physically and intellectually and theoretically. Like we understand what it is that we know very well. And, Virgo is not a hugely collaborative sign. It's sort of self-possessed. It's reflected by the Hermit card in the tarot. Like, it's that energy of like, I know what to do. Just let me get in the flow. Let me get in the zone of doing the thing that I'm really masterful at. I had never heard the archetype of Virgo described as um, the priestess archetype before, but this week on the Pattern app, they describe Virgo as the priestess and the priest, which I thought was a really interesting reflection on that archetype. What one that I had never encountered before, but I understand that, the priestess is also a skill that can be mastered. It's very internal. There's a physical, practical application of priestessing, and there's an intellectual, theoretical application of priestessing. So that was a new archetype for me, but one that absolutely made sense. So as we're in this new moon energy, it is both a time of aligning ourselves to what it is that we want to master, and also a sort of shedding of what has gotten in the way of our mastery. What is it? What is the skill, the practice, the niche, the subject matter that we want to devote ourselves to, that we are willing to apprentice ourselves to become masters? That is what this lunation is asking for us to reflect and to choose. Like if you are like me, I'm a Sagittarius with the Gemini moon. I'm what do they say? A jack of all trades and master of none. I'm sort of like a dabbler in a million things, but I've not really chosen anything for mastery. This lunation is asking me, like, Erin, what is the thing that you really want to hone, that you want to claim um, as your place of genius, as your place of expertise? And this moon is asking the same of you. And then we look at what house is it asking that of, and what planet is in that house. So I'm a Capricorn rising, which means that Virgo is in my ninth house, which is the house of higher education, travel, expansive ideas, publishing. And I have Mars in that house, which is the planet of action and ambition and drive. And so I'm having all of that reviewed. What do I believe? What do I want to study? Where do I want to go? And what energy do I want to put into into those pursuits? So we've talked quite a bit here about the higher octaves of Virgo. The lower octaves of Virgo, or the encumbered Virgo, the Virgo that's still sort of polishing the facets of itself, can be hypercritical, perfectionist, um, really hold itself back because it's perfection or nothing, mastery or nothing. Um, this is my niche and no one else's. There can be like a real competitive edge to the unpolished Virgo. Um, and there can be a lot of like nitpicking and uh and the kitten just went flying across the room. Um and dismantling of what could be really good, even if it isn't perfect. So in those areas of your life governed by Virgo, is there a paralyzing perfectionism that prevents you from experiencing what is good, even though it isn't perfect? Virgo is an earth sign. Um, and so when we think of like the plants of Virgo, we're thinking of like really earthy grounding plants. I think of plants like potatoes and peanuts and tree nuts, and these really substantial, grounding, nourishing plants are Virgo plants. Um, yeah, so when we think of the astrological glyphs, we have the scales, which are Libra, which will be the next sign after Virgo. And Virgo is the woman holding the scales. She is the priestess, or the teacher, or the guide, the hermit, who is the foundation, knowing the self and having the expertise for relationship, the foundation for justice. So, who do we know ourselves to be? Who do you know yourself to be? And what do you wish to have mastery over in your life, and as a gift to give of service to the world? Um, in the traditional astrological houses, Virgo rules the sixth house, which is the house of health, day-to-day routine, and service to others. So that's another thing we can be exploring this month is how is my physical body doing? How is my mental health? How's my emotional health? How are the routines of my daily life adding to or subtracting from my health? Um, in what ways does my body need me to be in service to my body for my health? In what ways do I have a surplus to give in service to the world? So, some more contemplative questions for us to hold this month as we walk through the archetype of Virgo together.